Greetings, seekers of knowledge, and welcome to another episode of Embracing the Paradox, home of the deranged, the supernatural, and all things that go bump in the night. True crime, urban lore, we have it all for you right here. I, of course, am Distal Marrow, your trusty guide into parts unknown, and I am asking you, once again, to let me take you on a journey. If this is your first time visiting and you'd like to support the show, please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Today, we're going to do something a little outside of the norm. As you know, we recently did an episode delving into the real-life attacks inspired by the internet sensation known as the Slender Man. We were met with several concerned comments regarding the recent proximity of the attacks, as well as the influence of violence in the media on the real world. So today, we have an expert here to address these concerns. Criminal psychiatrist Dr. Samuel Loomis. Dr. Loomis, thank you so much for joining us today to share your thoughts.
Of course. I'm a really big fan of what you're doing, so trust me when I say it's an honor.
And just to clarify, it was you who contacted me after seeing the response to our Slender Man episode, insinuating that you have some valuable insight to share with our viewers.
Absolutely. Actually, I'm a huge fan of the topic itself, and it's been around for decades. This notion that the public puts the onus onto various aspects of media for real-life crimes. You'll always hear about books and film and television and music, video games even.
And you don't believe that the blame lies on these sources?
Well, if you look at the history of art, all the way back to cave paintings, I think it becomes obvious that art depends on the perspective of the artist. Essence preceding existence, if you will.
Without delving too much into existentialism.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, if anybody could be blamed for the descent into madness, it would be philosophers. But in all seriousness, there has always been violence in the world. Violence preceded the art that depicted it, and if that's the case, then what or who is really responsible for it?
Whatever you say, doctor. Right. So what do you think all the fuss is about?
Are you a movie fan?
I dabble.
Horror?
Come on.
Of course. Well, I do have a strong affinity for the genre. And whenever this topic comes up, I often think of Billy Loomis, the character from 1996's Scream. Billy was actually an homage to my namesake, Samuel Loomis, from 1978's Halloween. Anyway, when the topic does come up, I often think of a quote from the film in which the antagonist in the film says, "Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative." And I actually think that's a bit more of an accurate description of what's actually happening.
And there are, of course, studies to back up this claim.
Well, yes and no. I mean, there have been numerous studies done with various amounts of data, but the general consensus seems to be that although people with psychopathic tendencies tend to be drawn to these types of media, the media themselves, the pop culture elements, don't have a direct influence on the psychopathic behavior of the individuals. Certainly not to the extent of the people that you've talked about on your show.
Right. So back to the Slender Man attacks, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier.
No, Morgan and Anissa are two extremely disturbed individuals who happen to meet each other at exactly the wrong time in exactly the wrong place. And as you have discussed on your show, Morgan is the daughter of a diagnosed schizophrenic, and she herself has displayed characteristics of this affliction. And yes, I know the Slender Man phenomena was all the rage on the internet, and the internet has had an egregious effect on the last several generations. I believe that the Slender Man was simply an excuse for these young ladies to act out their psychopathic tendencies. And I believe that they would have done so with or without the lore.
So the Slender Man lore, You don't believe that it is as harmful as parents and the media tried to make it seem at the time.
Of course not. It's a story. I mean, this tall, dark-clad, pale individual who stalks its victims into madness. I don't think anyone who considers themselves rational would believe this to be true. Don't you agree?
Who gives a fuck what you think? Well, I'm not sure that I am qualified to judge who's rational and who's not. I mean, have you seen my show? But back to the other topic that was addressed in that episode. Do you agree that it is irresponsible to address these topics so quickly?
That's a careful line that does need to be walked. And I do believe that you yourself do walk this line by not glorifying the acts of these individuals. History does not look kindly on these types of individuals and their actions, if history even remembers them at all.
Right, but that is an argument that one could make. Some of these individuals aren't necessarily looking to be remembered fondly. They're just looking to be remembered, to be famous.
I'll say this on the subject. If the goal is to be remembered and to be famous, and all it takes to be famous is to commit one of these heinous acts, then that ship has already sailed. And if that's the world we've created, then that's not a world that we could come back from.
Okay, so one could argue that podcasts like this might be responsible for certain individuals committing crimes by acting on impulses that might not have acted on those impulses otherwise, because people like me might make them famous.
Are you trying to turn your audience against you, or?
Of course not. I just like to play devil's advocate.
Ah, indeed. Even if it's against yourself?
Playing the devil and playing the angel is purely incidental. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us on our little show here and sharing your insights, Dr. Loomis.
Absolutely. It's been an honor. Thank you for having me. And if you don't mind me saying, please ignore the angry commenters. You keep doing exactly what you've been doing.
Thank you, Doctor.
Oh, blow my brains out.
And thank you to our viewers for joining us once again. And I hope to see you next week for our next mysterious tale. Bye.